Hello and welcome in the new lecture about the GUI or the graphical user interface on Linux, and in this situation on the Slackware, and especially something called X Windows system. So just if you was thinking that we will work all time in the dark, that's a mistake. And I actually want to show you how it's easy to configure the GUI on Slackware and the other possibilities that it's actually offer, right? So let me jump in. Here we will speak about something called X Windows system, but just for your information, if you find out anywhere else in other books, or if you are part of some, let's say, Linux group, and you hear that people speaking about or giving it different names like X11, Xorg, X Windows System, X11 R6, then it could be called X version 11, or anything of those is actually X Windows system. So what is actually X? And we are not speaking here about the Elon Musk changing the Twitter into the X. So here we're speaking about the really old, one of the first actually implementation of the graphical user interface on the Linux itself. And just to understand the background, this X system working in a way that it is actually an application on the operating system which directly speak to kernel and to hardware, or your graphic card, or whatever is out there for in charge for the graphic. And actually this is a sort of the API for the rest of the application, or the user application on the system. So configuration you will find under the etc x11, and then especially under these xorg.conf file. Of course, these days it's recommended to have these configuration under the etc x11 xorg.conf, but as Slackware have all these, everything almost automated, we do not need, luckily, to use any of those. And there is a few tools that you have out there for the configuring the GUI. But before you can do anything on the freshly installed operating system, in this situation Slackware, you need to get out of the root user. So to be able to, in a proper way, to run GUI, you need to have an additional user. And that's actually a very, very first step in the Linux installation. So again, my point here is to learn you in a proper way how Linux works. So I will not refer to any other operating systems like Ubuntu, Red Hat, Debian, because all of these is almost done through the graphical user interface or some sort of that application. But here I want to show you the roots and how it's working in a Unix-like operating system. So to be able to continue, we will do an administrator stuff with the root, but we will use root actually only when it's mandatory and when it's very really necessary, let's say. So to be able to done our configuration, first of all, it's like, as a first step, we should add a user, and it's very simple. We have a command. We can say add user and then name of that very user. So in my case it will be Ghost, but what you can do add user and then provide it name of the user as a parameter, or you can just say add user and hit the enter, which I will do here. So once you do that, system will ask you, or the script will ask you to give a login name. I will give it a Ghost, and then the rest of the thing you can just hit the enter until you get to the prompt where system asking you for the password, because the rest will be set up automatically, or if it's skipped, it's just enough for this script to successfully proceed. So here I will just hit the enter. System will automatically create an home Ghost directory. It will give me the bash as a default shell. I will not set up expiry date, but this is just for your info. If you're working on a server side, and if you're installing Slackware or any Linux operating system, GNU Linux operating system, and if you want that your specific user have expiration date for its password, then it's going to be locked. You can set it up there. And actually, as you can see here, this is a quick overview of what is done. Now you can hit the enter and continue. Of course, you can give it more details like name, office phone, home number, and we are at the place where we need to enter the password. But I just wanted to also quickly comment about the above, like name, office, and office phone and home phone. Why this is there? Linux is actually the multi-user operating system, and this means that if you have, let's say, 100 users out there on the same operating system, all of them connected, and you want to see who is in the office, and you want to see actually what is the name or the number of these, or what is the office number or the room in the office where this person or your colleague is working. In the old days, it all was possible through this actually terminal, and then you can check for the user all that information. And this was this prehistoric, let's say, way how also you would find someone. So you do not need actually to leave your operating system, and actually you can even communicate and send direct message from the user to user inside the terminal, which we'll see also through these lectures. For now, I will now configure the passwords for this very user. Of course, you need to say it 2 times. And there is one more important thing here that I want to point out regarding security itself. As you can see, in a moment I was typing the password there, it was not even showing the, let's say, these usual way like you have on fancy Facebook, Twitter, or whatsoever, the asterisks, right? Where it show you that how long the password is, right? And this is how actually, Linux taking way of the security, and especially these scripts. So just imagine that in a moment of entering the password, someone was behind your back and looking. So this person already know what is the length of your password, and this is an security measure to prevent this one. So that's just for your info, and also that you are not surprised if you're typing something from your keyboard when it's about the password, it will not be shown on a screen actually. Okay, so now once when we have a user configured, we can check its home directory, and it's under the home ghost. And of course, there will be quite a lot of around moving there, and I just want to give you command one by one, so you probably will see in this lecture that I'm using some commands but not explaining them, but I will go into details, of course. So here, I want now, as I can see with ID, I am a user which have an ID 0, and this is very first user out there. And there is the other command called who am I, and this will just let me name of the user I'm currently using, which is a root, which is the sort of the god on the operating system. Root can even delete operating system. It can harm everything out there. So it's very, very important that once you have these privileges as a root, that you know how to use it. So we want to switch from the root user into the user ghost, which we created. So we'll do something with command su, and then we'll say minus, and then we'll make space and name of the user. So as we will speak much more about the commands as a su and the sudo in the future, I will not go into details here, but for now, as you can see, I switched from the root here into the user ghost, right? If I do now who am I can see I'm ghost, and if I do an ID of my user, it will tell me that I am now assigned with the ID of the user, or the UID 1000, and GID, which means group ID, group that I belong, is 100. And this is also very important concept of the security out there on the GNU Linux, but again, more later. So once I am a user ghost, I now can start to doing my day-to-day work. And as I mentioned to you in the beginning, this lecture is about the GUI, so I will not hide it anymore from you. How to actually configure GUI or the configure an X server that you can use it. So there is an easy command called xwmconfig. And as you can see, also a great practice is actually that you could use an autocomplete with tab on your keyboard. So I do not need to know the whole command xwmconfig and to write it every time. So all I need to do xw, and then I can do tab. Once it will not show anything, and the second time system or bash in this situation have the autocomplete, and it will offer any command there on the system which starting with those two characters. And now I can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and I need xwmconfig. So let's just continue. I will add an M, and then I will do autocomplete with tab. And this is really and great and time saver and life saver and you know, inside there, which can help you quite a lot. So please, whenever it's possible, just use autocomplete. Once I have xwmconfig, I will hit enter, and then I will get the offer to choose Windows Manager for the X. So I will choose here an KDE Plasma desktop, and once I hit the enter, the system or the script will return me back into the terminal. But what's successfully happened in the background is that default Windows Manager for X system is actually now set up to KDE. And now the question is how I would start the graphical user interface. It's easy as just running command start X. I will hit the enter, and then we will enter into KDE Plasma Desktop. But just before that one, I wanted you remember this. So you have an X as a server, as the application there on the GNU Linux, which handling the graphical user interface for you. Then you have multiple Windows managers. So these Windows managers speaking with these X in the background and offering you nice graphical user interface. And as you can see with a tool as is xwmconfig, you can choose between multiple of these Windows managers. Here it's on a Slackware, but on the other other GNU Linux, you can choose or switch between these Windows managers. It's by default on the other operating systems just sort of hidden from you, and it's automatically started. But again, this is just not an simple operating system. There is a magic behind this one. So if I stop speaking and start X, we will get into the very well-known Plasma KDE operating system, and it really looks great. Of course, there is a pros of cons of these things. So if you're like me, and if you just also love your hardware out there, then you will probably not use the graphical user interface because you do not want to burn unnecessary your CPU or the RAM memory for nothing, right? That's fine. I again fully understand if it's your operating system for the office and day-to-day work. But if you are Linux system administrator, then most of your time and most of your career, you will not need even the graphical user interface. You will probably spend like 80% of your time in a terminal itself. But okay, that's totally fine. So here we can see that we can go through the graphical user interface. We can start an applications there. We have quite a lot of these things. Everything is, as mentioned, open source, and in most situations also free software. So you do not need to pay for anything. Everything is there just on your hand. You can click and start using it. So I always like to start with some sort of the games out there. So let me quickly check and export, which is probably chess. So I will not play, of course, but let me just do few quick steps. And okay, this is not automatic, right? So it is, sorry. Let me see what the opponent will play, and I will jump here, and then I will not waste your time on this. But I just like this sort of the intro. So if I close the program, which in this situation was a game chess, I can continue through this, but I want to actually show you more tricks out there. So I will go into terminal, back into Xterm, and now this is sort of the simulation of that bash, the terminal that we have inside the graphical user interface. So now you see this is an application shown inside the operating system, but in the background we have X system which serving us to be able to see this. So you see the magic behind, and also you can see how the other operating system handling this stuff. Here I did not configure my working environment, so you will probably not see this nice intro, the name of the prompt, which is then telling you here that this is your workstation and username, because it's not set up. And on the Slackware, you need to do everything on your own, because you need to know your operating system in and out and your environment, and you're free to set it up as you like and not as, I don't know, someone push you to be. I will not mention the name of the operating system. So here I can again execute commands like ID or who am I, and it will tell me you're a ghost. And now I want to get back into terminal, and I want actually to maybe change this KDE graphical user interface to something else. So I want to go back in the root. So I can say su minus and then root, or I can, because it's a root as a default user, and the one which starting with 0, I can just say su. Then I can say password for root, and then now I am okay, if God lived on earth, people would knock out all his windows. That's great. So here I can say xwmconfig. So I am inside the GUI, but I'm still freely using this tool, and I can choose something else here, right? For now, I will not do that. I will go to cancel. I will clear screen for now, and then I will do something like init 3, and I hope it will turn me back into the, let me check, init tab for now. So init 3 run level should be multi-user mode. That's actually strange why it's not return me there, but just to be on a safe side, let me reboot machine and get back into the terminal. Okay, great, we are back. I will now log in as a ghost this time, and so there is no need to log in as a root, as, okay, I think I had made a mistake, right? And now I will configure xwmconfig, and I will configure, instead of the KDE, to using the XFCE, or the cholesterol-free desktop environment. This is really, so if you compare KDE and the XFCE, KDE taking much more RAM, much more CPU during the work, but these days, machines are really great, so it's not too, there is no too much difference. Personally, I like more the XFCE. So if I choose XFCE here and confirm with the OK, now what I need to do is just again startx, because the configuration now in the background just switched from the KDE into the XFCE. Just one more thing. Startx at the moment is some sort of the alias to what is changed, but just for your info, if I do start and do an autocomplete that I already mentioned to you with the tab, you can see start, and then you can see a bunch of the other options like start blackbox, fluxbox, FVWM2, start KVLand, and so on. So all of these down are actually already presented in the menu above, and I just want to say that you also can do start in that way as well. So if you just do start XFCE4, you will get directly into the into XFCE, or if you do startx, you will jump directly into what we configured. So it will not be sort of the Plasma desktop, but it will be something much faster, I would say. And for me, much familiar in that way. But again, if you go back to the games, and you can see from here, if you start the game, everything is the same as with the KDE desktop. So this is something which different Windows managers do not affect how your application behave. So maybe these buttons above, like, I don't know, minimize, maximize, close, and it will be on the other side, or how you actually want to set it up. And it's even possible to really customize these XFCE to look like, I don't know, menu from the latest Mac operating system. But just, it's very important that this is not a Teams, but this is really fully fledged applications out there. So both KDE, XFCE have its own great community out there, developers who are working for years making these tools really great and the best possible. So from here, I will again run another terminal emulator. So it does not need to be term, but it can be just terminal, how it's called here. Again, I will just become root. And now I will try to do something else. So init3 again, for some reason, it should revert me back into the previous screen in a terminal, but it's not doing. But there is one more thing actually I want to show you. So you probably ask yourself, like, yeah, that's all nice, but I would like to know how this concept working of once when I start operating system to not jumping into terminal and then from the terminal running the startx and so on, right? I want to immediately get these splash screen for the login. And yeah, that's possible. So the Slackware actually using the system V, and we will talk about that one a lot, I promise. But for now, it's just important that is the most Unix-like operating system out there, and it's using some similarities like we have in the FreeBSD these days. And why I'm mentioning all of this, actually, under the etc init tab, of course, you need to edit these as root user. You can edit those run levels actually in Slackware, and it's as I mentioned you multiple times, everything is greatly documented. So you just do not there is no need to leave your operating system. So there is no need to go there on a Google or to, I don't know, Stack Overflow or whatsoever to getting these. Of course, sometimes, yes, it's not forbidden, but I just wanted to say you can find almost everything inside the operating system. And once when you also learn how to use tools like help and man and so on and so on, it will be really great. So here you can see that actually current default level is 3. So if you go up and read here, it's telling you, that's why I'm all time trying to do init 3, but I need to check what's, maybe something changed with the version 15, or maybe I'm just doing something wrong at the moment. Of course, here you're more than welcome, put your comments out there if you know better or you found out solution. But here we can see that we are using a multi-user mode, and this is a default Slackware run level, which means once when we start Slackware, it will bring us to the terminal, and then we need to execute some commands like startx to get. But we want to change it into number 4, and the number 4 is by default x11 VLAN with SDDM, KDM, GDM, XDM. All of them are actually session managers or the Windows managers. And now we are getting to final conclusion. Like we have an X as the application, which speaking with kernel, with your hardware out there, and then offering you ability to use the GUI. Then we have KDE or the XFCE or any other out there actually Windows manager, but there is these session managers. So for the logging to get into this first screen where you're getting this nice login page, you need to change this from the 3 to 4, and from now on, once when it is saved, you can freely reboot your system. So you can actually reboot it with command reboot, or you can do shutdown -hold now, as you already probably saw. But as you can see in the init tab, and that must work, there is an ability actually to send this signal, which called for 0 is halt, to turn off your machine, or 6 is reboot. And as you can see here, for the default run level, it says do not set to 0 or 6, because then probably you will put yourself in a danger, because system will never start if it's a 0, or it will always reboot if it's a 6. So yeah, but it's, of course, everything is possible to fix, just for your info. So now we have in ID4, which in the init tab actually represent the session manager. So our expectation once we reboot our machine is that system will bring us nice login page. And here is 6. So I wanted to show you, if I execute init 6, it should actually reboot my operating system, and it's doing the same stuff as the command reboot or the command shut-r now. As you can see, in GNOME Linux, particularly in the Slackware, you have this ability to do same thing in a multiple way, and that's actually what is one of the great thing about GNOME Linux itself. So here we are now loading operating system, but as you can see, it's skipping the terminal, and now we are getting to something which you probably are used by the other operating systems, right? So here you finally can see your user, and you can enter your password, and you will be in a no time. But just before that, as you can see down there on the left side, you can choose again sessions or the managers that you will have there, and then even from this menu. So I will leave it as the Plasma full Wayland, and Wayland is something I would say much more advanced if you compare. It's sort of the replacement for this X system, but it would be now, of course, too much even to start a sentence about that one for this lecture. So now just show you how you can use full GUI access in the Slackware operating system. I hope you learn in and out how this stuff working. So starting from the so-called X system or the X server, that's the best way to call it because it's a server, and then going through Windows Manager on top of the Session Manager, and then how to actually use your operating system. And from here, you can do whatever you want, like you can sleep, hibernate, restart, shut down. So for now, I will just shut down the operating system, and then see you in the next lecture. Thank you.